Welcome to America's Fractured Politics. Today I've got with me Ahmed Baba. Ahmed Baba is one of my favorite Substackers. A great commentator, somebody who's incredibly lucid and concise, but at the same time very deep in his analysis. And it's just great to have him on because I've got a bunch of questions for him, and I'd like to take the advantage of the opportunity today to have him. So, welcome, Ahmed.
Oh, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be on. Going to be, needless to say, we have no shortage of things to talk
No, we
about. That's for
don't.
sure.
Let's kick it off with DC. You've written about the federal
Mhm.
invasion, and I live here. I'm a DC resident. So we've had some harrowing sights in the last couple of weeks. We're now talking about moving into Baltimore and Chicago. What are your thoughts after 2 weeks of this ugly charade?
I mean, it's just so transparent. This is not about crime. That's what I keep repeating every chance I get. I mean, you have DC with a declining crime rate. I'm sure you've seen it firsthand. 26% down from this time last year, 30-year low in violent crime overall. We see him targeting now Chicago, New York, LA, Oakland. And these cities have three things in common: it's blue cities, blue states, and black mayors. So he's specifically targeting these partisan district, well, not partisan districts, these specific blue areas, because he wants to pick a fight. The Republican states that make up the highest homicide states, he doesn't talk about those at all.
Exactly right.
So aside from the fact this is an authoritarian deflection, it's clear he's just trying to racially profile these mayors, frankly, and create this false idea that these cities are dystopias to justify a power grab. He can manufacture another emergency to try to seek more power.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
transparent.
where's the National Guard in Memphis? Where's the National Guard in Nashville? Where's the National Guard in New Orleans? Where's the National Guard in St. Louis? And you could go on and
Yep.
on and on. It is a charade.
Mississippi. I mean,
Exactly.
there's so many, it's unbelievable. It's just purely not about crime. Anyone who makes an excuse for it is either delusional or they're playing into Trump's authoritarian
Yeah.
agenda.
I just heard a little while ago that he was upset with Wes Moore's comments, so he's talking about taking money away from the Key Bridge project. Now that's money Congress appropriated. He has no right to do
Hmm.
that, but he's going to do it, and he's going to get away with it.
Yeah, him and Russell Vogt, his OMB director, are obsessed with the idea of impoundment, which is illegal under the Impoundment Control Act, and they're going to try to maybe freeze those funds. I don't know, but it's just he's clearly losing it right now. There's something going on with him that it's escalating. And as someone who's even written about Project 2025 and his authoritarianism for years, I've been increasingly worried about the behavior. I mean, I'm not sure if it's just because he's trying to hide what's going on in the Epstein files or what's happening, but he is acting incredibly and increasingly erratic, to the point where it's just he's trying to deploy military in peaceful cities. It's just escalating really fast, and I'm just trying to figure out what's going on or what do we not know that he's trying to hide. He used to behave this way before the New York Times would release like a Mueller related article. He would be freaking out that week. We'd wonder what's going on. Then come to find out he was freaking out about an incoming article. So I'm just wondering, what is it that we don't know that he's dealing with right now, or what is going on? Because it's I know it's just normal authoritarian power grab stuff, but it's really escalated out of nowhere, seemingly right after the Epstein file scandal started to erupt.
Well, he's paranoid to begin with, but with the Epstein
Yeah.
stuff, he's become more paranoid, and he sees enemies around every corner. Well, in fact, he's got them. He's made them.
Yeah.
He's created enemies. So he's now worried about the fact that all of these things are coming toward him. So he's fighting back by flooding the zone with more bullshit from his own side.
Hmm.
And this is going to
Hmm.
continue until the Democrats focus and decide to, become, more fixated on not just him, but on dealing with the deficiencies in their own, um, uh, their own situation. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Speaking of Project 2025, what's your sense of the progress from their perspective? How are they done?
Well, I mean, the Project 2025 tracker has it at 47% either implemented or pursued. And, my analysis is kind of more nuanced on it just because I've been writing about it since 2023.
Yeah.
And I was one of the first people who wrote like a real big explainer on it. And so I've been in the weeds on it. And frankly, they botched a lot of the early implementation of it. And I know people don't see it that way, but the introduction of Musk as a factor in their authoritarian pursuit really kind of scrambled the early implementation, had a lot of the cuts caught up in the courts. It wasn't really the methodical Russell Vogt way. So after early missteps, they're starting to move more methodically now, with Russell Vogt kind of in the background, trying to get the federal agencies to implement these cuts more quietly. They've been moving in a way where it's not gathering the headlines. So now what I'm looking at is the stuff they're quietly doing and how they're pushing the agenda forward without fanfare. Because Musk was absorbing all this heat and attention in the earlier days, and they were fumbling. But now it seems that they're moving more methodical in the background with Russell Vogt. So I'm just kind of, watching those potential purges. Everything he's doing is based in the unitary executive theory. This is all a project 2025, frankly. They're trying to consolidate power in the executive, and it's concerning.
What switching gears, what do you think is going to come out of Epstein? Is this, I mean, Todd Blanche has basically buried it, and he's probably going to release Ghislaine Maxwell. But where do you think this goes? Do you think that they release anything, and do you think that his base becomes upset? Is there anything that'll upset this base?
I mean, his base was upset with this at first, but he again is now moved their attention to something else, right? All of this authoritarian spectacle and deflection is trying to move the Overton window, trying to move the attention elsewhere, and it seems to be working. They're all talking about crime now. They're all talking about these deployments, and again, meanwhile, like you said, Todd Blanche, his former personal attorney, right, who's deputy AG, basically cooking something up. The moment I saw he was meeting with her, it was clear that she was going to deliver testimony that tried to abdicate Trump of responsibility, which is what ended up happening. We saw with those transcripts of her trying to act like he didn't do anything. What I think is in the files personally is I think she recruited more teenage girls from Mar-a-Lago than we know, because that was what Trump hinted at. That's just my speculation. I don't know for sure. But remember in that press conference when he randomly just started talking about how the reason why he cut off Epstein was because he started stealing girls. Like that was it. That he started saying that, and that came out of nowhere. That was unsolicited from him. So that tells me that he was maybe told about something that might have been in the files related to that. Obviously, we know about Virginia Giuffre, but he kept using plural, as in there was multiple girls taken from Mar-a-Lago. So I'm wondering if that is what was in there. That's one of the things, and that's maybe some of the damning things that he's really freaking out about. But I think there's something there. I can't anticipate whether or not it's going to be released. It seems like right now, with House Republicans in Congress, and they're the ones that receive the files, I don't think they're going to release anything that harms him politically. They're going to try to cover it up. So I don't know if we're going to really see the light of day while they have the majority. But all I know is that at the moment, it seems he's distracting his base, but it's only a matter of time until we get another Wall Street Journal story or someone leaks where it becomes central news again.
Virginia Giuffre's memoirs are coming out in a few weeks or a few months. I'm not sure which it is. And those are going to contain a lot of information that's deleterious from Trump's perspective. I wonder how that's going to be received by the public. And he's going to say it's all lies.
Of course.
He'll say it's all
if there's anything in there about him,
And the question then is, does it prompt the Wall Street Journal and the Times and the Post to start digging a little bit deeper and finding more people who are willing to come forward? Because I would bet anything that if her memoirs come forward and they implicate people, it may give a shot of bravery to some of the others to come forward. And at that point, it becomes a really difficult problem for Trump. We'll see.
Yeah,
it's hard to tell. I mean, he's got Teflon all over him, so it's hard to.
With everything going on, it's just speed. It's just the speed at which he moves. Just immediately pivoting people's attention. It's you really don't know where it's going to go. And honestly, not the illegality part, but Democrats could take note with the sense of urgency he moves with about everything. I think in the future, don't lie and be lawless, but if you want to get things done, just move with a sense of urgency, because you can really move the news cycle and drive people's attention in a way that Trump does here. Like he just moved the entire news cycle to DC, and barely any. I haven't seen. I watch cable news. I have like on my TV just like a quadrants of different news. Like I have Fox up there, CNN, MSNBC. I see what they're all reporting on all day, every day. And Epstein's nowhere right now.
No, he's not. He's off the charts right now because, Trump has, as you said, flooded the zone and made it very difficult for them to cover everything, and that's what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of Trump's veiled threats to suspend elections in the event of a war that presumably he would start?
Now that was a really interesting moment, that like the little tidbit where he was just like, "Oh, Zelensky, you're saying if there's wars, then no elections," and I think, he's musing about it. But the thing is, again, that's why the midterms are so important. You can't federally. There's no way to federally do, like, just the way our country is set up. It's not, the election systems are run at the local level. There's not a real direct way, unless he passes some federal legislation to really halt elections unilaterally, unless he tried and then Supreme Court greenlit it somehow, which I doubt. I just think it's, again, one of those musings. I think what he will do, what I think we can be sure of, given what we're already seeing, this is all test runs for that, I think, is creating fake emergencies and manufacturing crises around election time to deploy military to different states, to voter intimidation. I think he'll do that. I don't know the feasibility of him canceling elections, but again, it's just, we're so on the brink that things that don't seem realistic right now could be realistic in the future. So I don't know exactly. What do you think?
What I think is that he probably will do everything he can to do it, but he's going to get resistance from the states. Now, he may get cooperation from the red states, but they're going to vote for his people anyway. There are very few contested seats in red states. So he's not going to get any cooperation from blue states. And a lot of the contested seats are in New York and California. Mm-hmm. So that's where the action is going to be, and he's not going to get anybody out in the streets there. They won't permit it. In order to federalize the National Guard there, he's got to have the governor's permission. He's not going to get it. So he's going to have a very hard time doing that. So he can threaten all he wants, but there's a certain limit to the things he can do. Let's move over to the Democrats.
I'm glad you're. Yeah. Well, I just want to say on that point, I'm glad you're. Some people kind of fearmonger about it a little bit, whereas like you have a clear-headed analysis on it. So I just say, and I appreciate that, because it really is, these states. This is where states' rights benefit the Democrats in a lot of ways, and the way our system is set up, that it's not. We're not. We're not Germany in the 1900s. We're not this unit. It's not just one. It's not as easy to just conquer, right? We have these 50 states and their respective laws, so it's not feasible for him to do it, in my opinion. So I think, I agree with you
on that issue. There are a lot of people on Substack who've just given up. I mean, I get comments to my post saying you're too optimistic. There's no hope.
Yeah, I know.
And my response is, this is a human being. This is not some god. He can be stopped.
Exactly.
But we have to do the work of stopping him. And I'll get pushback from people saying there's nothing we can do. And I said, well, the choice is nothing we can do and lay down and die, or do something. I choose to do something. And I think it's that simple.
It really is. It really is, Mark. And that's the way to look at it. Like, I think we share an optimist perspective on this, because I'm always deemed like sometimes overly optimistic. But I agree. And also, one other thing, if we couldn't do it, he wouldn't be acting so scared. If we couldn't actually do it, he wouldn't be trying to gerrymander in mid-decade and be running pressure campaigns. He wouldn't be deploying military to different cities. He wouldn't be acting the way he was if he wasn't afraid that we were going to remove him from power and that we were going to whoop him in the midterms, which is what's going to happen, I think, regardless of what happens with this gerrymandering, because I think low propensity voters are going to turn up because his approvals are, like, just on that optimism note, this man's approvals, I just repeat it all the time, because people for some reason feel he wants us to feel he's more powerful than he is. And this man has a 37% approval rating in the latest Gallup. Other polls have him around 38%, very similar, which is 3 points away from his all-time low of 34% in his first term, which was days after January 6th, man. Like, this guy is close to being as unpopular as he was when the entire country was abandoning him, when McConnell was in the Senate floor trash talking him. Like, people need to recognize, like, this guy's not winning right now. He is underwater everywhere. Everyone is turning against him.
Right.
And that's where you hit the gas. You don't give up and say, like, well, there's no hope for elections. That's what he wants. I think he's cooked in the midterms. I think, regardless of what happens next, I think he ended his chances at being full dictator in the first 6 months by being a total idiot and going full tariff and tanking the economy at the same time he was trying to implement an authoritarian regime. Like, dictator number 101, you can't build authoritarianism while tanking your own economy and reducing your popular appeal. That's not how it works. You build popular will first, and then you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just my overall take.
Yeah, I mean, he's obsessed with tariffs. The thing about the Republicans is they will cheat to do anything they can. They know they're losing the midterms, so they're going to
Exactly.
cheat. California, they're going to try to stop the response in California to Texas. They're doing Texas, obviously. They're probably going to do Ohio. They may do other states. They're going to do everything they can to win. But the problem I'm having is that the Democratic establishment appears to be following that line and cheating too. I got a text the other day that disturbed the hell out of me from a Democratic operative. I asked him, what do you think about Mamdani? He said, Mamdani's not going to win. I said, why do you say that? He said, because we're not going to let him win. He said, we in AIPAC are going to ensure that he does not win. I said,
Oh,
you
an
and
AIPAC
AIPAC are
guy.
going to ensure he doesn't win. He said, yes, absolutely. He said, there's no way. This is existential. He cannot be allowed to win this primary.
He's gonna win.
He's going to win. And this attitude is going to sink the Democrats among the people they need most. The newer voters, the voters who sat it out last time, who could be persuaded to join in this time. And it's a blind spot. The Democratic establishment seems to be wedded to the idea that the donors who are in many cases sympathetic to Trump on economic issues, but who are Democrats on social issues, call the shots. The consultants who get money from the donors provide the advice. And the old line Pauls follow both of them because they're afraid to lose their seats to Republicans. But they ought to be afraid of losing their seats to insurgent candidates right now who have had enough and who represent a constituency of people who've had enough. But they don't seem to be listening. I prepared a piece that I sent via an intermediary to Ken Martin, and the intermediary passed it on to him. And he got back to me and he said, you know what Martin's response was? I said, what? He said, interesting. It basically articulated all of those thoughts and urged him to start thinking about talking to people where they sit about the economy and about their fears and about everything else. Went through one ear and out the other. And that's what worries me.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Hakeem Jeffries' refusal to endorse Zoran, right? Mamdani,
He's got $1
you look at
million
these
from
other
AIPAC in the past.
these other instances. Yeah, that situation. The thing is, also it's unfortunate because the fear mongering seems to have worked on members of the Democratic Party, where he's not an anti-Semite.
No.
He's not, and I used to, for decades, I published, or a decade, covered extremism. When I had my startup Rant, we would publish articles on anti-Semitism and just from PhDs, experts in extremism. And I know an anti-Semite when I see one. It's not him. And it's unfortunate he's being framed that way. But yeah, I just think generally what we're seeing is kind of obviously not in any comparison in value system or depravity or any of the other stuff, but we're kind of seeing a Tea Party type situation where the populist wing of the party is kind of just coming out and taking out, key establishment figures, incumbents, like remember Jason Kander, back in the day. I think it's not Jason Kander. It was in basically one of Paul Ryan's Jason Kander was obviously a good candidate, but I'm talking about Paul Ryan's second in command, Eric Cantor. Yes, Eric Cantor, where he got totally taken out by but that's what we're seeing here. But on the other side, right, with the Democrats, we saw it with AOC. We're seeing with Zoran. We're seeing with people who are coming into the party with real grassroots support that are trying to push the party in a more people-focused direction. And also authenticity. Democrats are just too careful, and they act like sometimes they don't Republicans are out here lying with bravado and confidence, and Democrats are just sitting here robotically trying to be careful, even though they have all the facts on their side. So
Yeah.
I think they really just got to step up their game. And I think we're seeing Newsom try to do some of this, and we're seeing a little bit of that.
They need to be careful because Gaza's still a fault line. 91% of Americans disagree with the Israeli war cabinet's decisions. 19 people
Yeah.
died today, including 4 journalists in an airstrike.
Hmm.
This is not ending anytime soon. Netanyahu has got it in his mind that he's going to divide the West Bank, kill a two-state
Hmm.
solution, eliminate Gaza, and probably give it over to Trump to establish his Riviera.
Yep.
So my deep concern is that the Democratic establishment, because of AIPAC, is going to continue to fight the idea that Netanyahu has to be reined in. And we're going to see a lot of people be completely disillusioned by that, and that'll keep some people home. And that could reduce the margin of victory, because I do think we'll win in November 2026. But there's a chance for a really huge victory. And there's the fear that that could be diminished because of the attitude of the Democratic establishment on this issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that also cost Kamala in 2024. And obviously, she was in a difficult position. She was the vice president of the administration at the time, so it's hard to undercut the president's foreign policy positions when you're running for office. So she was in a bind personally, but the Biden administration, they didn't reckon with the fact that you have to separate Netanyahu from Israel in your mind.
Yeah.
Like, Netanyahu is not Israel. Netanyahu is a right-wing fringe representative of that coalition government that he had to cobble together to avoid corruption, avoid prison, frankly. He had to ally with the worst fringes of the Israeli government in order to remain in power. Exactly. Yeah. And that's what Trump did too. And Netanyahu's not our ally. The Israeli state is, but Netanyahu himself, even since the Obama days, Netanyahu did things that were just unacceptable, frankly. He did all these things. Remember when he came and spoke to Congress without even telling,
Obama.
Just disrespectful. Yeah, just disrespectful shit. And again, the Israeli people, they are on the streets by the hundreds of thousands opposing and protesting. They want, and I've got a lot of my wife is Jewish. I'm married into a Jewish family, and they're the most pro-Palestinian people I've ever met. A lot of the Jews I see here in New York are very upset with what Netanyahu is doing, and it's a total misreading of the situation to pretend that Israel's not the bad faith actor right now. What they're doing is clearly inexcusable. We're beyond the weeks after October 7th when it was retaliation. This is now, Hamas is underground. I mean, Hamas is not even it's now just a siege. It's not even a war at this point. It's just, they're just civilians being attacked right now. Like Hamas, I'm trying to find instances of a Hamas militia striking back. That's not what this seems to be about anymore. And it just needs to end. It just needs to end.
Yeah.
And I think people who are I'm for the hostages being released. I've been speaking out on that. I mean, I think everyone is. I think it's just clear to every observer that Netanyahu is not in his right mind right now. And he is not leading Israel to a place where they can achieve their full potential, because this is all also harmful to Israel.
I agree.
It's what Hamas wanted. It's what Hamas wanted when they attacked October 7th.
Exactly
They
right.
wanted overreach.
Well, part of the problem is that AIPAC is a wholly owned subsidiary of Netanyahu. So any criticism of Netanyahu's policies by Democrats is going to get AIPAC's wrath on them. There's no daylight between Netanyahu and AIPAC. So criticizing Netanyahu is a non-starter for Hakeem Jeffries and for a bunch of other people. And that's problematic, because this idea that somebody who criticizes the Israeli war cabinet's attitude on Gaza is an anti-Semite, this has to stop.
Yeah, it's just kind of the same thing that Trump does. It's a weaponization.
Yeah.
And exploitation of anti-Semitism to achieve your goals, like where Trump was saying, these colleges are anti-Semitic, so therefore I'm going to pause their funding, when he just wants them to kind of align with his political ideology. It's just no, the killing, innocent people are dying, children are starving, hundreds of thousands. It's just, there's no excuse anymore. There's not that there was before, but it's just, striking Hamas is one thing, attacking Hezbollah in Lebanon is another thing, but just bombing civilians and shooting them when they're waiting in food lines, There's no strategic value. I don't understand. I just can't. You can't defend that.
You know,
Just can't
unless your
defend it.
desire is to basically bring the Palestinians into submission and create an environment
Yeah.
where that they have no longer have any role, which is, I think, what the objective is. Staying on foreign policy, Putin is going to slow walk these negotiations. What do you think the game is? What are they playing at, him and Putin?
I mean, right now you're seeing. I mean, he brought Zelensky back. They didn't have blowout like they did last time. I think Putin just buying time.
Yeah,
Putin trying to buy time. I think he's delusional. I think he's been delusional since the beginning of this war. He thinks he can somehow keep it going and then gain more territory slowly. But like at this point, the gains he's making are marginal. We're like they're stuck in you got the Donbass. Like the territory he has is what he has, and he's not going to be making seismic gains. We saw Ukraine get really innovative with that strike on the military site in Russia. I think he's just trying to buy time. I think he's trying to buy time. Trump. I just think he's just playing Trump. Like Trump, I don't think they're in. I don't even know if they're even in it together. I think Putin's just playing Trump for a fool. Like that whole summit was just a big legitimizer for like why would you let him on U.S. soil? Why would you let that man on U.S.
it's
soil
disgraceful.
and give him the dignity of that meeting? Drive him around in the Beast. His KGB agent president. You put him in the Beast. Are you crazy, Trump?
Yeah, he is.
It's just it was the most weak display. It's just there's something about it where it's like this guy who's so obsessed with strongman imagery is just all that goes out the window with Putin, and Putin only Putin. He's willing to look like a total weak, supplicant, just a subservient fool to Putin. But he's so obsessed with imagery everywhere else. It's eerie and it's weird. Strange. I know people speculate various things about why he's so subservient to Putin, but it's just the behaviors. They're not being the collusion allegations if you're going to be acting this way.
I think he's completely enamored of Putin. Whether they have anything on him or not, it's immaterial. He's completely enamored of Putin. He wants to be like
Yeah.
Putin, and he views Putin as somebody that he can emulate. And so when he
Hmm.
does that, you can see him fawning. I mean, there's certain
Yeah.
people he's fawned over in the past, and Putin is one of them. And he's a very
Hmm.
dangerous person to fawn over because he's got complete control of him.
Exactly, and that's more my take too. I don't really buy the compromising material side of it. I don't think Putin needs compromising material in order to control Trump in this way. I think you're right. I think Trump is just totally his stooge, is in love with him and wants to be him, and sees him as an aspirational figure, just the control and the power. That's the guy Trump wants to be. I mean, look at how he's behaving in the last couple weeks. It's really Putin-like. It's really Putin-like.
It is. Switching gears to the economy, how long do you think it'll take before these tariffs begin to bite?
I think we're about to start seeing the impacts now in the next weeks and months. This what we're seeing with the Postal Service today, with them halting shipments because of the exemptions for low price items went away. I have a small business friend who runs a small business who she was trying to import to India, which is what you would want to encourage if you're really trying to box in China, but that's a different conversation. But they're halting. Halting the shipments. DHL has these weird shifts. Like we're going to see prices skyrocket. We're going to see mail take longer to get here. We're going to see shipments take longer to get here. People are going to start seeing that impacting their bottom line. We already saw the job market, those revisions, slowest 3 months of job growth since the pandemic, and before that, the Great Recession.
I've got a solution.
We're
Fire
seeing
the guy who gave the figures.
Yeah, fire the guy. Cook the books.
Yeah,
That's the
woman
best
who gave the
solution.
figures.
Yeah. Cook the books, and so we see that happening. Also, another thing, I have an article that should be coming out tomorrow, where it's about the black loss of support.
Yeah.
So basically, and black unemployment hit 7.2%, and a lot of that's probably from the federal cuts. And it's just the economy is about to hit a head, and the market right now, which is being delusional, frankly, the way it's behaving, just like all built up on the Magnificent Seven companies that are taking the market up. They're delusional. There's going to be there's going to be a crash. There's going to be a correction at some point because it's not factoring in. Like we already saw earnings come in, and while it wasn't devastating, earnings were not at the level they were estimated to be, and the CEOs were citing tariffs already, and they were saying now they're going to move to the tariffed inventory. Walmart, these other places, we're going to start to see this next quarter some real cost impacts. And man, Trump is just acting like he doesn't care what pain he causes or political pain he faces right now. So I don't know what's going to shake them out of it, but it seems like they're staying the course, and Americans going to pay the price.
Well, he knows that he knows that he can't legally be reelected. And so that doesn't matter to him if that turns out to be the case, that he can't run for a third term because he can't get the Supreme Court to buy in to his ridiculous argument that he can. And the other thing is he thinks he can be a dictator. So if he doesn't have the opportunity to run for reelection, he'll remain in power as a dictator. So what does he care what people think anymore? He said during the campaign, I don't need your votes. I don't want your votes, because he had it in the bag. He knew what he wanted. He knew what he had, and he knew how to get it.
And I think the one wrinkle to that is the midterms. Yeah. I think although he knows he probably, as though he wants to run again, I think he kind of accepts that he might not. This is probably his last term. He doesn't want the last 2 years of his term to be riddled with a Democratic majority that's a pain in his ass, that's investigating him, that's potentially impeaching him, that's they're actually getting the real Epstein files, like Democrats can be able to start to run on that kind of thing. Like being able to actually be subpoena and get the real files and release them if they get the House majority. He doesn't want that, so I think he's scared of that. But yeah, he is behaving in an overall way like he knows he personally doesn't have to run for re-election again, so he doesn't care. But again, this is why his allies are so dumb. He doesn't care about you guys, you Republican allies that are backing him. You are the ones that have to go and defend this record. You are the ones that have to go face the music in 2026. And I'm sorry, but no amount of gerrymandering is going to be able to offset the turnout that I think is coming.
I agree with you
in 2026. I think they're cooked. I think that the people are so pissed across all demographics that it's almost going to be unsurmountable for them. Like, okay, you do 5 seats here in Texas, Newsom offsets that. Okay, let's say Missouri moves, Ohio moves. Okay, well then Maryland's thinking about moving now. New York and Jersey, they won't be able to do it in time because it's constitutional changes. But other Democratic states will probably consider, they're not going to get the 42 seats that, Bannon and them want in this gerrymandering campaign. I think they have done so much damage to their party. And we can't see it now because it's scary, and he's putting the military out on the streets, and it's horrifying. But homeboy is doing George W. Bush damage to more so than the Republican Party. We remember, Bush's approvals in his final years. Sure. Like that's what I think we're going to be tiptoeing into in 2028, where they think they're going to be coming out of it strong. But Vance, if you're running in 2028, you're going to be left with
wreckage,
and then. Once again, Democrats are going to have to elect someone to save us from the mess. Like it's almost like he wants a recession. It's.
Last couple of questions. Oh, man. One on the Democrats, one on the Republicans. On the Democrats, is there anybody you really like?
Yeah, I like a lot of them. I like what Newsom's doing right now. Just the fighting, and I've been a critic of Newsom before. I think just the messaging and the intention grabbing is good. I like Wes Moore, and not just because we have the same barber. He's great. I grew up I was born in Maryland too, grew up in Virginia, so I have attachment to that area. But Wes Moore's great. All the governors are good. Pritzker, I think. Obviously, I love AOC, but I don't know if that's realistic. But would love to see her on the debate stage. I want my thing is I want everyone on the debate stage. I like Buttigieg, but he had this answer recently on Gaza that I think is going to haunt him.
I think so too. For
a little while, but I do love him. But
you need a marketplace of ideas. You need nobody putting their hands on the scale as they did for Hillary and for Biden and for others. You need a primary that allows an Obama or somebody outside to emerge. And I really think that the person is going to be either one of the governors or an outsider. I like Andy Bashir personally. And the reason I
Oh
like,
yeah, I think Bashir's a dark horse.
I
Yeah.
think Bashir is a dark horse. He can speak to people in red states. He's been elected several times in a red state, yet he's a progressive and a passionate one too. And he doesn't
hmm
make any bones about it, and people respect him for it. I think he could be a real challenger.
And something on Bashir, people don't know what he's doing. He's doing work to get the black vote
Yes, he
on the
does.
low key. I was in Selma for the 60th anniversary this past March for the Jubilee, and he was there. He was like one of the only. I didn't see Newsom there. I didn't see other Democratic governors there. I saw Bashir there randomly, and he gave a speech. And it was just black audience just loving him, right? And it's like things like that. I didn't see Harris at the Jubilee either, right? And it's like you see Bashir of all people there. I was like, okay, I see you. I'm gonna clock this. You are out here at an event that wasn't getting that much. I mean, press. I mean, it got press obviously, but it's like a really important event to the black community, and you're there. So like that tells me he's putting in the work right now among the key constituency that really matters. He's smart. That's the constituency that got Biden over the edge in in South Carolina. So I think Bashir is a really good. That's a smart person to bet on there.
What I like about what Bashir did in Selma was that he bet on word of mouth because he knows that word of mouth is very important in the African American community. If a few preachers hear it there, they're going to pass it on to people, and they're going to pass it on to people, and pretty soon the word's going to get around that this guy's somebody to look at. So I would not discount him. I think he could be a formidable challenger for any Republican.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the last question before I turn it over to you for any final thoughts is, what does Trump have a natural successor?
Natural. I mean, they're all unnatural
Yeah,
people. I think natural successor. I mean, I guess it would just end up being Vance at the moment.
by default.
But by default, just given. But again, I think his proximity to Trump will end up being one of those things that is a liability come 3 years from now when we're actually hitting the lows that Trump brings us to. But I think Vance is the one who thinks he can make the intellectual case for, that was what his thing was before. Like Vance thinks he can make the intellectual case for MAGA, wrap, theories around it and philosophies. And in his speeches, he tries to intellectualize it so it's palatable to smart people, frankly, to people who aren't just angry. Right. Try to talk about Western civilization, all that, the white nationalist stuff that they get on, the Peter Thiel this thing. I'm talking about their whole ideology. Yeah. I think it's him. I think he's probably the front runner if he runs. But I really think it could end up being someone else because Vance is not. He doesn't have it, and he's really mockable. And I think if you want to carry on, it's also the style.
He's
It's not
clever in
just
his
the
own way, though.
ideology. He's very smart. I think he's smarter in a lot of ways than Trump in some
In
ways.
most ways.
Trump has other, and yeah, I actually think Trump, I'm one of those, I don't think Trump's as dumb as people
No,
think.
he's got a
I
low
think
cunning.
yeah, I think, yes, exactly. I think what he is his ego is so big, it weights down his intelligence so much. He can't see beyond it. But he does have like a instinctual brilliance about him of like reading people. Like he'll see someone and know their weakness and be like, I can exploit that weakness. That's what he did to the American psyche, frankly, and the American public. He's like, I know what weaknesses to pull on to get power. But when it comes to day-to-day stuff, he can't see past tomorrow. He thinks in short-term thinking. He's really narrow-minded. Vance is not. Vance is long-term thinker. Vance is smart. And I think he's something to worry about, but do I think he would be able to stand a chance against Newsom on a debate stage or Westmore or Elizabeth Warren, anyone? No, I think Vance would get cooked. And I think we learned from the Tim Walz debate, you can't play nice. I think if the campaign had let Tim Walz be Tim Walz, we also would have had a different situation last year. But yeah, it might be Vance. And if it's not, either way, I just think the Republican primary is going to be an absolute cesspool next time.
I mean, I think there are going to be free and fair elections, despite what a lot of people think. And I think
Yes.
during those free and fair elections, you will see turnout. People will be disgusted. They'll be exhausted. And they're going to crush the Republicans, I think. And
I don't know exactly how free. I think some of it might not be as fair with gerrymandering and voter suppression, stuff
They'll
like
cheat,
that.
but I don't think
They'll
they'll get away
cheat.
with it.
exactly. I think this is one of those moments where Trump has done so much damage. And I think it's something where he had to show America like the bare face of their flaws, and like this is what you enabled, like through your cynicism, your apathy, not paying attention last election, just for some reason remembering 2019 as Trump's economy and not 2020, like erasing the whole 20 year of 2020 from his presidency and like longing for 2019. And we empowered this guy, and it's just something we're gonna have to live with for a really long time. That this guy literally waged an insurrection, and then we helped him complete it. It's crazy. It's insane, and I just think we're going to have to reconcile. We're going to have to reckon with that for a long time. But I agree. I think it's something that could, in the longer term, if we really think about it, strengthen America. If we come out of this and we codify every norm into law, if we do sweeping anti-corruption, anti-authoritarian legislation, and the next Democrat that wins does not play games and actually pushes progress in a real forceful manner.
Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts is, just keep the hope, guys. Like, I know things get dark, and if you're listening, and I'm glad Mark is a fellow optimist here, and you're someone who believes that we're going to be okay outside of this. Just reconcile, like, look at what his power he actually has, and then compartmentalize that with what power he wants you to think he has, and like recognize that they're different, and that he's not an authoritarian leader yet. He's just still aspiring at the moment. He does not have all levers of power. He is not all powerful yet. Try to see through some of the ruses, and recognize that this is all seeking to mask deep, deep, deep weakness. And you can look at it in every poll. This man is historically unpopular, and they're cooked next year. And this is coming from someone who read all of Project 2025 and was warning about it for years. So like, just coming from someone who's very clear-eyed about what we're facing, I think we're going to be okay. That's kind of my final thoughts.
I agree with you, and I'm glad you came on. This has been wonderful. I look forward to seeing you all next week. And please keep reading Ahmed's work and listening to his videos, watching his videos and listening to his commentary.
Yeah, you can find me at ahmedbaba.news. That's so it's ahmedbaba.news. See me on social media. I'll respond to a lot of the comments you leave, and see you later.
See you soon.